Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Junkyard 7.3 that we had a video on trying to see if it was locked up or not. And I've made the decision that I'm just going to tear it apart and get it all torn apart, show you how to get these things disassembled, because realistically, I mean, there's nothing that's really salvageable on it that's going to be usable. So I'm just going to tear it all apart and separate it out and send the aluminum pistons in for aluminum and the scrap for scrap, because whole engine blocks aren't worth a whole lot of money complete. So we might as well make the best of our scenario here. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be removing the lifters here, and there's a bolt that holds each retainer on every lifter valley here, and it'll pull, when you pull those bolts out, the lifters will come out, and there's a retainer on the front here for the camshaft, but we're going to be not going to be able to spin this engine over, so we're going to have to undo the mains and undo the rod bearings and stuff like that and try to get everything disassembled. So looked at the rods a little bit closer. They are PMR rods, so they're trash anyway, so they got to come out no matter what. So there's no point in trying to keep this engine together, because realistically this thing's not going to make any power anytime soon. So we're just going to take the rods out, toss them in the trash, and get everything torn apart on this, and hopefully that cylinder will come out without too much of a fight. So we're going to find out what we're actually dealing with here, and see how much of this is really junk. So we got all these bolts out. We're just going to reach in and pull them out of here. Now these are specific to the retainers here, so definitely be keeping all these bolts. And then we can go ahead and pull the lifter retainers themselves out. And then reach in and pull your lifters out. Now, inspecting each one of these can tell you the condition of your cam. You know, if this thing's been screwed up, or if it somehow has spun in the bore, you'll have damage done to this roller. We're not going to be keeping these lifters, because there's no point in keeping used lifters, especially when you've dropped them on the ground. So this one's got some corrosion on it, probably from the water. So we may have some cam damage anyway. So now that we have this side out, we'll go ahead and do the other side as well. And we'll flip this thing over and start working on the bottom. Ooh, that one's stuck. Yeah, there's a little grime on that one. So we got this turned over here, and you can see the slime and grime and everything else that's on this block, and all of its pieces and parts. So not real sure what happened there, but we are going to attempt to get as many of these connecting rods removed from this crank before we take the mains off. So hopefully we can get most of them. I know we're not going to be able to get them all, so that's going to be the fun part, is getting some of these disconnected so that we can get stuff out of here.
This one.
So we've got all the caps loose except for, looks like this one down here and this one back here. So we'll try and get most of these caps off of here, and hopefully that'll let us rotate some of this crank around and see what we come up with. That's a shame because the bearings don't look that bad in this engine. So we took off the oil pickups nut there. I'm hoping we can get all these caps off of here and be able to pick this crank up and get it out of the way. So if we do that, that would facilitate removing the cam, and hopefully we can get these pistons out of here. So we'll see what happens. So the only thing that's really going to hurt us now is the rear main back here. So I'm probably going to have to pop this rear main off in the back because it's going to give us a problem getting this crank out. So we'll get that off. It's a bunch of 8mm bolts. So we got all the bolts out that hold this rear main in, and it's just RTV'd on like everything else. So it comes off. You can see how many bolts there are that hold this on. I took the ones out that actually hold the seal to the actual rear plate. Probably going to peel this gasket or this seal off of here and throw it away. So that's not going to be a big deal. But there's pretty good wear on the crank here. And this is the original main because there's no wear sleeve on the crank. So there's all of our main bolts out, and our caps are going to come off next, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of wiggle this crank around a little bit to get the caps off the rods that we couldn't get because they're down in the block, and obviously we can't spin it over to get them.
You smell this.
So these are pretty well on here, no surprise. The oil's got them kind of vacuumed on there, and plus they've been on there for so long. And they're also machined into the block all the way around, so that helps hold it also. So we'll see if we can get these to bump out of here. So I'm going to put a bolt back in each one of these so that if they were to break free here, because they seem to be a little tight, that they won't go flying, because I don't want them to go flying. I'm sure there's engine builders out there going, what is he doing? But I'm not worried about saving any of this, so I'm not too concerned about it. Now these are marked if you're tearing your engine apart to get it back together. There's an arrow and then a 1 and then an arrow and a 2 and so on and so forth. So these are matched to where they're supposed to be. But we are going to be trashing this block, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But you can see that we have a little bit of wear on these bearings. So like I said, this engine had sub 200,000 on it, but you still got some bearing wear here. And while it's not horrid, it's definitely not the best. And this is likely from not changing the oil soon enough. So always change your oil on your 7.3. So here's our number 2 back. And this bearing is failing. You can see the marks in it and then also the delamination, I guess you'd call it. So and we're just noticing a trend here. Same trend. Same thing once again. So you can see that there's definitely some wear on these bearings. And if you're going to be rebuilding your 7.3, I definitely suggest, going all the way with it and replacing everything. So we got the mains out and we got most of the rod caps off. So you can see we have a little bit of movement here, which is no surprise because there's nothing holding that in there. But it sure would be nice to get these pistons out of here. So I think I'm going to try to drive some of these pistons off this crank, get them down in the cylinders a little bit more because they all have to go out this way anyway. And we're definitely not too horribly worried about these rods. So
that one moves much easier.
this is the frozen one right here. I'd be shocked if it moves. Hey, that's a good thing. So we got one more to move here. Let's see if this thing will move now. Still doesn't want to move. No surprise. Well, it's still not moving, so let's see if we can get some of these pistons to move some more. Give us a little bit more room here. So realistically, everything's kind of out of the way, except for the two that are attached. And they're not putting up without a fight. So I've had enough of screwing around with this. It ain't coming out. So I think I'm going to make it come out. That's a pretty stubborn crank. That's what we needed. We needed the crank to spin, so had to put some pressure on it here to get it to rotate up out because I'm not strong enough to pick this whole thing up. So we can get these last two rod caps off of there, and this crank should come out of there then. So we're going to go ahead and drive these pistons out of here and see if they're going to come all the way out. So thing is, you got to get the crank out of the way to get these out because they're supposed to go out from the top, but sometimes it doesn't always work that way. But this one's probably the closest one to coming out, so we'll try to get this guy out first and show you what we're dealing with. So we have our piston here, and this piston actually doesn't look bad at all. There's no cracks in it, but we'll peel all the rings off of it. It doesn't even have any busted rings, which is nice. Sad because this engine could be a good one. But we have the powdered metal rods here, and you can see that they're rough texture and there's no forging marks on them. They're cast and then machined. So these aren't your ideal rods, which is why they're going to go directly into the scrap pile. And to get these separated off your piston, you got your clips here. You just depress those, and then you drive your wrist pin out, and then you have your pistons here. So, you know, guys have put used pistons in before. I've seen it done. So we might keep some of these around in case somebody needs one. But we're going to go ahead and knock the rest of these out, and hopefully they all come out. Thought I was going to land on my toe. So we have this whole side out here. Now we can work on getting this other side out. So the best one for last, that's the one that had all the dirt in it. So let's see what we come up with. So that one's putting up a fight, which I fully expected. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around a little bit to give me a little bit better angle on it. That way when it comes out, it'll go right in the oil and splash everywhere. So this was the crappy one there. You can see how clean and scarred up everything is. So there's zero oil in this cylinder whatsoever. So we still got to pull the oil squirters out of here. But that's the least of my worries. So let's get this flipped over and we'll look and see what we're looking at for cylinders. So yeah, there's some pretty good pitting inside this cylinder here. And I don't think that that's going to clean up. It's pretty deep. I don't even think a 30 thousandths would get that clean. So this block is going to be destined for the salvage yard for sure. The only things we're going to pull out of this yet, we're going to get the cam and a couple bolts here, and then we're going to pull these collars out for the heads, because sometimes these get destroyed. So these are good things to have floating around for you. And let's see, this side doesn't actually look bad after we've pulled the cylinders out, except we have a really bad gouge in the side of this cylinder here. It almost looks like a welding spatter had gone down through there. So you can see all the pitting in that cylinder there. So that one's pretty bad. And then we have this mark way down in here. You can see that that's not very healthy either. So I'm not even going to try to save this engine block. And it's pretty bad because you can see that there's some crosshairs or cross hatching still in this one. But it's a shame that, you know, this engine went to the scrapyard because of, you know, just negligence of it sitting. I mean, if it was inside, it probably would still be a very usable engine. But at this point, it's not usable due to its condition. So we'll go ahead and get this cam out. So in here behind this cam, we have a bolt and a bolt. So these bolts are retainers for the cam, and basically it holds it into the block. So whenever I had said that we need to have this engine rotate to get this cam out, it's so that we could actually rotate this gear to get to these retainer bolts. So you can't get to them because, as you see, you get to this one and then the other one's covered, or vice versa. You can see here that it's covered down here no matter where you put it. Even if you go to here, you won't be able to get a socket on this one, but you can get this one barely. But in this instance, we were able to remove everything so that we could get this cam out. And if you are doing a high horsepower build, this is where you would TIG weld your cam gear to your cam. Now, doing that keeps this cam gear from walking off the cam, which is, I'm not going to say it's common, but it's possible with the higher horsepower builds because of the way the gears are cut. It wants to put pressure on this gear this way as it spins. The whole engine spins between the high pressure oil pump and the crank down here. So it wants to push this gear out. So that's why guys will TIG weld these onto the actual camshaft itself. So we're going to go ahead and remove this cam out of here, and hopefully it'll come out without any issues. So with those two retainer bolts out, this should come out. Yeah. I'm not being super gentle with this because we're not too worried about the bearings inside here. We just don't want to damage the camshaft in case, you know, somebody wants to need a camshaft or replace it or whatever. Because if I drop this, it will break. So the one thing I'm going to point out here is this lobe right here. Notice how there's no machining done on this lobe, whereas these other ones are machined. So this is the lobe that would drive your fuel pump on an OBS Ford. So an OBS 7.3 would have a lobe here, and it would drive the fuel pump that would be in the valley. So if you're putting a Super Duty engine in your OBS truck, it's important that if you're going to run the stock garbage fuel pump, that you use a cam that has the lobe. Otherwise, you're forced to do e-fuel. But I don't know who would want to keep that mechanical pump anyway. But that's a difference in the cams here. So this cam actually looks pretty good. It doesn't look like there's too much wear on the actual lobes themselves. So we have a cam here in case somebody were to need one. So we've gotten this engine torn down, and you know, I showed you that it was bad in the cylinders, which sucks, but it is what it is. However, we got the crank out, we got the cam out, we have a bare block here. So if you're working on your 7.3 and you're trying to get it torn down, this will kind of show you the little rough steps of doing so. If you were going to reuse your rods, definitely don't use a metal face dead blow or a punch on them. However, in this scenario, we were kind of dealing with a little bit of a problematic block here to get the cylinders clean. You know, if the cylinders were clean, then the pistons would come out a lot easier. And yeah, these weren't clean at all. The pistons weren't clean. There was a lot of corrosion. So you can see I've got myself a little mess here to clean up. But we're going to go ahead and finish disassembling the rest of this block. So, you know, the bolts and all the little pieces and parts that could come in handy in a pinch or if you're in a bind. So otherwise, this stuff's going to get torn apart and, you know, separate it out and just throw the rods away because they're powdered metal. Nobody wants them. They're garbage. And the cylinder heads are good. We'll keep those. We'll put them on the shelf somewhere. You know, if somebody needs a set of cylinder heads, we have a set. And, you know, the crank's still good and the cam's still good. We'll see how long they'll set here before I end up doing something with them or toss them out in the trash. So if you're looking for stuff like this, don't hesitate to ask. You know, if you're in need of a cam or a crank or whatever, these are still good and usable. However, the block in here is not. So we're going to go ahead and just get the little pieces and parts out of this that are salvageable and send it off to be made into a new car. So hopefully this will help you guys out in working on your 7.3 and show you some steps on tearing the insides of these down and show you how much of a bear they really can be and how much you know, specialty tooling is really going to help you here, such as the correct hammers and punches and puller tools and stuff like that. So you know, I don't have too much of that stuff. I'm not an engine builder myself. Probably gonna be eventually after we get Silver Truck here going. But thanks for watching, guys, and hopefully you enjoyed the video. And if you like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. Please promote my stuff if you're able to, and share it to anybody that may be able to find it useful. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next one.